Welcome to the Dealmakers podcast. The Dealmakers is a platform for leaders in the commercial real estate industry to share their personal stories, business insights, and industry secrets because we believe in spotlighting the real people behind the deals. This podcast is brought to you by Agora, a comprehensive real estate investment and management platform offering a wide range of services to enable real growth and provide the best real estate investment experience both for GPs and LPs. I'm Asaf Raz. Let's go. And today with me, have as always, a special guest. I love having only special guests on this podcast. His name is George McCleary. He's the principal at McCleary Realty and Development and has a really cool additional product that he's working on called Defender Networks, which is something I really would like to focus on also on this podcast and hear a little bit more about that. So George, please take it away. Tell our audience about yourself so they get to know you, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Asaf. Happy to be here. Yeah, so I am a real estate investor of 20 years, and I've got about 25 doors. It used to be more than that. I've had to sell a few over the last few years, but active developer in multifamily and in flex space as well. House flips. I completed my last house flip last July. Am I going to do another one? Probably, but I'm taking a little break on this to focus more on development. And my latest side quest, which is just like you said, Defender Networks. And that is a product of me going viral earlier this year with a video called I Stole a House, where I basically pretend to be a squatter. And what happened from that is it completely changed my world. I got on the news. I was on Dr. Phil. That was talked about on Joe Rogan. The whole thing really kind of blew up my life for a little bit. And what I realized after speaking to people nationwide about this is that squatting is a huge problem and it's a really underserved market for landlords. And then along the way, I gathered a lot of knowledge about exactly how this is done, how it's not done in terms of squatter prevention, detection, ejection, and made an online course about it called Squatter Defender. And then in the process, also learned about other types of real estate fraud. And one of the most insidious was title fraud. And I'd never heard of that before, but then I started hearing about people losing all of their home equity on it and not being insured, and thought to myself, okay, this is an issue. So I created software that protects against that, against the harmful effects of that. And now I'm going on the road and helping real estate investors and just homeowners in general keep themselves from being victims.
So take me through this thought process, right? Essentially, you probably, and this is probably there's a story behind this, right? Something happened probably in your assets that made you think like we need to do something better. Can you share that story with us?
Totally. So I've never had, knock on wood, a full-blown scammer squatter. I've just had like homeless guys and addicts like asleep in my flips or my development projects, and we gently move them along. But what had happened to a couple of colleagues of mine, several of my colleagues, is that they'd been victims of a much more sophisticated type of squatter scam. And that was when people move into a vacant property without the owner's knowledge, forge a lease, put utilities in their name, and then when the cops show up, they say, well, I'm sorry, officer, I have a lease to be here. As you can see, I've got all my furniture. I got my buddies moved in. The owner here is mistaken. I'm definitely the rightful occupant of this property. The owner, of course, is like, what the heck is this? No, this guy is totally scamming me. Officer says, I got a he said, she said situation here. You guys are going to have to go sort this out in court. And at that point, the squatter has already won. He's getting to live in a place for free. The cops aren't yanking him out by the collar. And you've got an owner that's being victimized.
Wow. Okay. So how does the idea of solving this comes to life? Again, I know this is such a big challenge. I've met a few owners, developers that went through this hideous process of getting a squatter out of your place. How do you do that? How does that work today?
So the conventional methods, so in Squatter Defender, I go over conventional methods and unconventional methods. And this is a product of me talking to people nationwide about their problems. But the first thing that most people do is call the cops. And then the cops show up, and what I was describing before, that's what unfolds. And then they take them to court. And when you take them to court, you're essentially admitting that they are a tenant, at least of some description. And that's the conventional methods. And I'm not saying that that's a terrible idea, but that will, in a lot of places, keep that squatter in your property for way too long, for way longer than you would want to. Then we get into unconventional methods. So there's more conventional methods like cash for keys and whatnot. But then in the unconventional methods, there's some that I just describe what people did, but I don't wholeheartedly recommend them. Like there's ones that are just inherently dangerous and a bad idea, like pulling your squatter out at gunpoint. Then there's ones where people have like filled the house with rats, dumped snakes through the window, things like that. And they have gotten rid of the squatter by doing that. And then there's unconventional ones where I actually say, hey, this actually does work, like squatting on the squatter, which is where you hire a special type of contractor to move in with the squatter and become their roommate. And they're bad roommates, to say the least. And the squatter has to live with this bad roommate or roommates who are dudes who really don't take a lot of guff. And eventually they move out. And so I describe in all these process in a very condensed format so that people realize that they have options.
How big is this problem? Like, give me the numbers. How significant is it?
I get that a lot, and I really wish I had numbers for you, Asif, but unfortunately I don't because they're not compiled nationwide. But after going viral, the sheer number of people that were hitting me up with squatter stories, and take that and multiply it by just the number of my colleagues just in the Portland real estate investment community, friends I have in Seattle and California. So many people have had squatter problems as a percentage of just the investors that I know. It's somewhere to the tune of like 25% of all the investors I know have dealt with some sort of like nightmare squatting situation. And so what the numbers are on that nationwide, reflective of all the rental property that there is, I couldn't tell you, but I can tell you that each squatter instance, it was so much more expensive than I thought it was. It was ranging on the low end of like maybe 10 grand or something like that. That was extremely rare. Most of the people had between lawyer costs, damage to their apartment or to their house or apartment or whatever multifamily unit they had, the court costs, the lost rents from not being able to rent the house during the time that the squatter was in there. It's between $50,000 and $100,000 in total damages, and it's totally not covered by insurance.
I see here. So while we're doing this, I'm a big ChatGPT user, and I ask it, "Okay, can you give me nationwide numbers of squatting?" And it goes, "Well, there's no nationwide, but there is one for Atlanta, there is one for Dallas, there is one for Orange County, Florida." The numbers are pretty big. I mean, 1,200 single-family rental homes only in Atlanta are occupied by squatters. That's a survey by NRHC, which you probably know them. But it's pretty cool. Maybe to run this kind of survey for you through a program could be really awesome to get those numbers. Like if it doesn't exist anywhere, let's try to get those numbers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's very compelling. And in a city like Atlanta, it's a sort of a blue city in a purple state. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of this comes back to politics. And that's one reason why I went viral, because it was centered around being in Portland, Oregon, which is a very blue city and a very blue state. And what really made the thing catch fire was me going viral on right-wing Twitter, which is not my bag, really. I consider myself in the middle politically. However, that's who really took offense to it, took issue with it, and actually thought that I was the squatter. And it does matter which municipality you're in when you're squatting, because in more liberal jurisdictions, the squatters just have more leeway.
And I know they both have leeway, and honestly, it's like I hear of some states it's like almost impossible to get a squatter out of your place until you take all measures needed. It could take like 6 months, even 8 months, until you're able to get someone out of your place, even if he's not paying, at least, which is crazy. Which is crazy to me. The loss of money. It's like it's so much money being lost in there. So, oh, oh, oh my God! I just know.
Will say like, oh, I'm in Texas. Like it's never going to happen around here. It's like, dude, I talk to people from Texas, like not even from big cities. And like, they tell me that they took them a year to get rid of their squatter.
Unreal. I know it also happens more on vacation rental type homes usually, but I might be mistaken, right? It's mostly like they're short-term rentals, or could it be also in like a regular long-term agreement?
So it's actually mainly in long-term rentals because most of the time these places are kind of cased beforehand. So people will drive up, look for signs that it's not occupied and figure, okay, because what the squatters are trying to do, they're trying to go the longest period of time without being discovered so they can get like established. And with short-term rentals, chances are the owners probably know who they are beforehand if they're going in the conventional way. And if they're going in there when just nobody's in there and just figuring out a way to break and enter without any evidence of that having occurred, then it's going to be only a tiny little matter of time till people discover that they're there. However, it's a furnished place. And so once the cops show up, not having Airbnb pulled up or anything, that's one way they pull off the ruse with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. So they can essentially, it's like a real fraud there because they can stay there and say, yeah, I was here forever. It's not a short-term rental. It's my shit. It's my apartment. It's my stuff. Wow. What do you think is I assume you know that already, more or less the number. What is the numeric value? What's the loss in dollars that people deal with usually, like I would say yearly?
So it depends on how long the squatter occupies your place, but the biggest number probably that people don't consider is the amount of damage done to a unit, because when squatters occupy your unit, they're almost invariably trashing the place. And a lot of times they're making alterations that are difficult to repair. Like one guy completely took out a kitchen, another person put in a stripper pole in the living room, and then also ran like a puppy mill out of the living room, which of course destroyed like the floor, the subfloor, like even the joists, just from animal urine. So it's upwards of between $50,000 and $100,000 per occurrence of having a squatter in your property based on all the people I spoke to nationwide.
Wow. So how does your, aside of the course and everything that you've put it into like I would say a very, summarized course teaching people how to deal with that. What is your solution? What does your solution look like? How do people use it today to prevent squatting?
So I'll wait till the shameless plugs part, but squatterdefender.com is where you find the online course. It's $199. I'll have a promo code for you later, but you can complete the course in an afternoon. And by the end of it, you'll know more than your lawyer, your property manager, and everybody you know combined when it comes to squatting. Because one big takeaway that I had during this whole process of learning all about squatting is that nobody is here to protect you, not the government, not your property manager, not the justice system. You're really on your own. It's a really it's self-sufficiency type of situation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you have any, I think you mentioned something about it, having a tech solution around it or something technological that helps that you've built around it, or is just a course?
Yeah, so tied in with that, when I was learning about people who had squatter problems, some people said, hey, you wouldn't believe what happened to me with this. And this guy actually stole the title of the house and then squatted in it. I'm like, you can do that? And so then they're like, yeah, no, he just forged the deed. It was really like, and so I was like, wow. Oh, that's crazy. And then I heard about people not just stealing titles and then moving in as a squatter, but stealing titles and then assuming an identity of either the owner or somebody else with a fake ID that they got off of the dark web with actual like social numbers and everything, and then selling the house to somebody and then keeping the sales proceeds.
Oh,
and that's when I was like, wait a second. So stealing a house to squat in it, you just get free rent. And that's one thing. But if you steal a house and then sell it, you're stealing the home equity. That's the very reason that you and I are investing in real estate, is to earn equity, build cash flow, build wealth, and to be able to have that completely snatched away without any sort of insurance to protect you from that. I'm like, this is insane. How can this happen? So I researched it more. I found the preeminent deed fraud lawyer in the country, and I talked to him, and he basically gave me the rundown. He was very generous with his time, and I got a first I did the 101, then eventually a PhD in deed fraud. And the technological solution that you're asking about, Asaf, was the result of it was Title Fraud Defender, which is essentially a title monitoring service, because you can go online, refresh your county homepage and says, okay, it's still an Asaf LLC, still got that house, we're good. But if one day someone forges a deed and steals your title and tries to pull some funny business, you'll know about it immediately with Title Fraud Defender. And it's just a few bucks a month per property. and it goes down to like $2 if you have got a big portfolio. And basically, it gives you a heads up. It can't prevent the title and the deed from being stolen in the first place, because that's just a antiquated process with counties that is probably not going to change anytime soon. But what it can do is prevent the really terrible thing from happening, which is losing your equity and having that stolen. And when I say it's not covered by insurance, it is occasionally, but very seldom. If you look at your closing statements on everything that you've bought, you've probably seen the Alta owner's policy on your title insurance. But what that actually covers is fraud. It covers no fraud and impersonation, but it covers things prior to the policy date. So the policy date is when you bought the place. So that covers in the past. It goes in the past. But fraud and impersonation in the future is not covered by the Alta owner's policy. It is, however, covered by the Alta homeowner's policy. Very important distinction. Homeowner's policy, owner's policy. As you would guess, homeowners' policies are a lot more expensive. Most title agents haven't even heard this, even though they're selling Alta products all day long. They usually don't know about the difference. But if you go to alta.org or whatever Alta's website is, and you look at it, they have a little chart, and it shows you what you get with each one. And the much more expensive homeowners policy does give you that coverage. But if you go out and buy it now, it's going to cost you a bunch of money, like over $1,000. So it's either that or you get Title Fraud Defender for a couple bucks. And so that's basically the value that I'm trying to provide with Title Fraud Defender.
That it's such a sub niche, and I love these sub niche things because they just make a lot of sense. They also have this potential to get very, very viral, because people don't talk about them. It's like taboos. Like, you don't talk about this. You don't talk about having squatters. You just take care of it, right? And all of a sudden, you made it that people are actually having conversation about it. This is a real issue in the United States, in places that you wouldn't think it would be an issue, like, for example, like Texas, right? Where like it wouldn't never happen here, and it does. So this is really interesting. I do urge, you're probably going to talk about this in a second, but everybody to look both at Title Fraud Defender. I'm literally on the website. It's in front of me. It's super cool. Looks really cool. So people don't actually steal the equity of your home. Makes a lot of sense. And obviously also focusing on generally on Defender networks and the course that you're providing, so people just can understand how to deal with squatters from all the information that you have. With that, I'm going to pull into the final piece, which is our shameless plug. That's where, George, you shamelessly plug in what you're doing today, what you're looking for, what type of connections you want to find out there, some of the products that you offer. It's all going to be in the bio as well, but just so people get a chance to really get a deep dive and reach out to you if they need to ask any questions.
Totally. I guess the first shameless plug I would give is just for myself. Find me on social. I'm very easy to find. If you Google George McCleary, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, McCleary Realty and Development is my company. You can Google that one as well. I'm sure in the show notes we'll have my direct links, but find me on there. And if you got a story to tell about being deed frauded or squatted on, dude, like, hit me up. Let me know about it, because I've more or less become like the repository for these type of stories, and knowledge is power. And I'm going to be updating the Squatter Defender course and Title Fraud Defender with any and all new information that I find. And so hit me up, friend me on social, send me a note. And then the Squatter Defender course is at squatterdefender.com. And I've got a promo code for listeners of the Dealmakers. And that promo code is Dealmakers, no space. That'll get you 20% off of both the Squatter Defender course and the Title Fraud Defender software. And what a lot of people have been doing with Title Fraud Defender is buying like a 3-year subscription. That's the maximum we sell. And say you got 10 properties over 3 years, it knocks the cost down to a couple bucks per property per month. So you basically just got peace of mind over the next few years. And if you sell one of those places, you can swap it in with another property. We don't make you pay for a new one. So put in that promo code Dealmakers, so I'll know as you get 20% off, and it also protects your properties, and make sure that you don't wake up one day and find out that 6 months ago someone stole all your equity in your prized portfolio.
I love that, George. Thank you so much. It's really been, an insightful episode and a really new topic that honestly I didn't think that it's so significant. So just thank you for joining me today and for these insights and just going through this experience with us. To our listeners, thank you for tuning into another episode of the Dealmakers podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss out on the latest conversations with industry leaders. If you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, or if you'd like to be a guest yourself, please reach out to us via Agora's website or social media. I'm Asaf Fraz, and we'll see you next time on the Dealmakers podcast. George, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Asaf.